The Two Fridas is a painting that has captivated the hearts of millions. But what is it about the painting that makes it so special? What secrets do the Two Fridas hold? What does the broken heart symbolize? And why is the painting so deeply personal to Frida? Watch this video to find out. Frida Kahlo's 1939 painting, The Two Fridas, is a double self-portrait of the artist shortly after her divorce from Diego Rivera. It depicts two versions of Kahlo sitting on a bench, one wearing a European dress and the other a traditional Mexican dress. The painting is considered one of Kahlo's most famous works, and it is now housed at the Museum of Modern Art in Mexico City. But why did Kahlo paint two versions of herself? And what is the significance of the details in the painting? We will get to that in a bit, but before we do, let's talk about the genius behind this timeless piece of art. Frida Kahlo's life was a symphony of contradictions. Born to a German father and a Mexican mother in Mexico City in 1907, she was a woman of two worlds, straddling cultures and identities. She had a life filled with hardships, marked by physical and emotional pain, political activism, artistic expression, and a passionate love affair with Diego Rivera. Kahlo met Rivera in 1928, when she was a student at the National Preparatory School and he was a famous muralist. They married in 1929, despite their age difference. He was 42, she was just 22. The two of them had very contrasting personalities. He was outgoing while she was shy and, well, didn't like to talk much to people. Frida Kahlo was also a woman of many aspects and a keen political awareness. She had a political curiosity since she was young and lived through the Mexican Revolution. She became a Mexican Communist Party member in 1927, and in 1936 she allied with the socialist group known as the Fourth International. Frida and Diego also housed Leon Trotsky, who was a Ukrainian politician and revolutionary leader, and his wife, Natalia Sadova, from 1937 to 1939. Kahlo and Rivera's relationship was initially smooth, but it was deeply affected when Kahlo discovered that Rivera had been unfaithful to her with her own sister, Cristina. After Kahlo discovered Frida's infidelity, their marriage was turbulent and unhappy. What happened was that they both had numerous affairs and fought constantly, making it impossible for them to have a happy life together. Kahlo suffered several miscarriages and a failed abortion, which added to her grief and loneliness. She also endured chronic pain and multiple surgeries as a result of a bus accident that she survived when she was 18. The accident left her with a broken spine and a shattered pelvis. She also got a fractured leg and internal injuries that prevented her from having children. The list of tragedies in her life, as you might be thinking, was endless. Anyway, having no other place where she could go, Kahlo channeled and took inspiration from her pain and frustration and directed it into her art. Her artworks belong to the genres of naive art, magical realism, and surrealism, according to some descriptions. She mostly painted self-portraits that reflected her physical and emotional state, the result of all those years of trauma. She also used mythologies and traditional symbols in her work. Most of them were derived from the mythology and traditions of the Aztecs and other Mexican cultural motifs. In several examples, for instance My Dress Hangs There in 1933, she artistically inserted traditional imagery denoting her national pride. She used vivid colors, symbolic imagery, and surreal elements to express her identity, her culture, her politics, and her relationship with Rivera. Revealing her loneliness, she once said, "I paint myself because I am so often alone and because I am the subject I know best." Now that we know a bit about the artist, let's look at the details of the painting. The Two Fridas is a monumental painting, measuring 68.3 inches by 68 inches. It is painted in oil on canvas in a realistic style, with some naive and surreal touches. Kahlo's use of color is bold and vibrant, and her brushwork is expressive and gestural. At first glance, it seems like a typical painting. It shows two women sitting on a bench that seems to be made of wicker, looking at us, the viewers, with a vague and almost blank stare. But things start to get interesting by giving it a closer look. If you pay attention, you will notice that the two women are actually the same person, Frida Kahlo herself. They are holding hands, and the Frida on our right has her right hand under the left hand of the Frida on our left. The two of them are looking straight ahead, but their expressions are different. The Frida on the left is wearing a white dress. This dress is typical of the European upper class in the 19th century, and it represents Kahlo's European heritage from her father's side. The dress is decorated with lace and frills that cover her entire body, including her whole neck. The only part of her body that is left exposed is her forearms, as well as her heart. Looking at her heart, where the dress is torn in this area, it appears to be cut open, exposing the ventricles inside it even further. This Frida also has a pair of scissors in her right hand, which she uses to cut off a blood vessel that runs from her heart to the other Frida's heart. The blood vessel is severed by the scissors, and blood drips onto the white dress, staining it red. The blood stains look very similar to the red flowers at the bottom of her dress. This might be an allusion towards how her beauty and innocence was lost due to blood being smeared on it, a result of one tragedy after the other. The Frida on the right, however, is wearing a colorful Tehuana dress with embroidery, which is also adorned with jewelry. The dress is typical of the indigenous woman from the Isthmus of Tehuantepec in southern Mexico, and it represents Kahlo's Mexican heritage from her mother's side. This Frida has no cuts or blood on her body and looks healthier than the Frida on the right. She also has a small portrait of Diego Rivera in her left hand, which she seems to hold on to very dearly. The portrait is painted in miniature on a metal plate, and it shows Rivera as a young boy. Most of the background of the two Fridas is a dark sky with clouds. It looks as if there has been a storm brewing for a long time. The bottom third of the background is the ground, or perhaps just the floor. It looks brown, which means that it surely has to be a grounded surface. But what exactly does the painting mean? Well, there are many possible interpretations of the two Fridas, which have been written and talked about. They strongly depend on how we view the relationship between the two figures. One way to understand the painting is to see it as a reflection of Kahlo's dual heritage. The European Frida represents her father's side, while the Mexican Frida represents her mother's side. This interpretation could also imply that Kahlo felt torn between two cultures, the colonial culture that oppressed her people, and the indigenous culture that celebrated her roots. At the same time, another interesting way to understand the painting is to see it as a reflection of Kahlo's marital crisis. The European Frida represents the Frida that Rivera rejected, while the Mexican Frida represents the Frida that Rivera loved. This interpretation could also imply that Kahlo felt betrayed by Rivera, who preferred her sister over her. The scissors and the blood could symbolize the pain and anger that Kahlo felt towards Rivera, who cut off their connection. Many art scholars are also of the opinion that the actual meaning of this artwork can be understood by looking at it as a reflection of Kahlo's childhood memory. The European Frida represents an imaginary friend that Kahlo created in her head when she was lonely, while the Mexican Frida represents Kahlo herself. This interpretation could also imply that Kahlo felt nostalgic for the innocence she had before she met Rivera and suffered the accident, before she was played by the hands of her fate. The portrait and the blood could symbolize the attachment and dependency that Kahlo had towards Rivera, who was her only companion. However, it is important to keep in mind that these interpretations are not mutually exclusive, and they could all be valid at the same time. The Two Fridas is a hard to understand and rich painting that reveals not only Kahlo's multifaceted identity, but her turbulent emotions and her artistic genius as well. It is a painting that makes us wonder about the intricacies of not only Kahlo's life, but also about our own struggles and dreams. Click on any of the two videos on the screen right now for more content.